Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Friday morning, quite a busy week again, with lots of stuff delivered, manuscripts, 2 editors, and stuff done. And the sun's out again. So I think in a while we're going to go out for the afternoon, after lunch. First of all, I wanted to tell you about the arrival yesterday of a parcel of books from Orion. This is my new novel, which is out under the name of Elsie Mason, my saga writing pen name. And this is out last month. It's already out. It's called The Forgotten Daughter, and it's the sequel to The Runaway Girl, which came out in April. This was the kind of idea of doing 2 books a year, which had me working like crazy during the end of lockdown, those couple of years, doing 2 of these a year as well as everything else. They're 100,000 word novels. The last one in this trilogy comes out in February, and I just sent back the copy edit queries yesterday tea time. Or was it this morning? I did them yesterday. So aside from proofreading that 3rd one, that's the end of this trilogy, which is the 2nd trilogy, they're not to hand to show you, of the Elsie Mason collection. 6 books in all from Orion, and that's the end of it. Come March, February, they're canning the series, which is a shame. A real shame. When I did my copy edit of this one, the one after this, yesterday, there were 4 queries on the manuscript, which is just about immaculate. So, you know, I'm good at what I do. So it's a shame that they've dropped Elsie from their roster. The covers are very like the way they're covering Katherine Cookson these days, which is ironic and funny. It's the same genre, but it's also the same place. Katherine Cookson lived as a child in South Shields, more or less the same place as my great-grandparents did, the Masons. And they knew her, and they knew her stories when her books started to come out in the 50s and 60s and 70s, as I was made aware by all these aunties and nanas who were reading her books, both sides of the family. They knew the people, the places, and the times. And I heard their stories. And so I felt I had kind of skin in the game, as they say these days. I knew the background, the sounds of the voices, and the smells and the sounds of the places of what I came to call the 16 streets in my own books. Okay, I'm going to read you a bit of the beginning of this, of The Forgotten Daughter, Chapter 1. Kathy Sturrock was still a beautiful woman. With her flaming red hair and her cat-like green eyes, she was every bit as striking as she'd been 13 years ago when she first arrived in the 16 streets. Back then, she had been a penniless kid, turning up almost randomly in that warren of backstreet houses by the docks. She had been running away with hardly a thought of where she would end up. Some bloke driving a wagon load of goods up and down the highway between Northumberland and Tyneside had given her a lift, and she had ended up here in South Shields. How had she gone from being a girl with nothing at all to a name to what she was now? Round here, they called her the Queen of the 16 Streets. Everyone knew Kathy. Everyone could recognise her a mile off. Hers was the beating heart of this community. She was the fiercest, loudest, most compassionate soul in the place, and everyone knew it. She had time to help anyone. She had a kind word for all and sundry. She could remember all too well what it felt like when she was nowt, and she never forgot it. The bar at the Robin Hood pub at the top of Frederick Street was where you would find her most nights. Some time ago, the plaque above the door had been made over into her name, and now she was the landlady and sole proprietor. How proud she was of that fact. She stood at the bar, all dolled up, each and every night, and it was like the stage she paraded around on for the sake of her adoring audience. The Robin Hood was all hers, and she still found it hard to believe. To think she had begun here as a bottle washer, when she had hardly known which end of a pint was up and which end was down. It wasn't quite fair to say that she had worked her way up the ranks. She had taken the decidedly more unstable and some would say unsavoury route of marrying the previous landlord, Noel Sturrock. Now, he was a famous face in these parts too. He was a horrid, sour-faced old hunchback, under whose care this had been a dismal and dangerous establishment. He'd led Kathy a merry dance in their years together, but age and illness had seen him withdraw from the heaviest work. He'd become milder and less irascible and difficult. He was content for his wife to run the pub in his stead these days, just as well, because the Robin Hood was her whole world. She could hardly remember a time before coming here. Her early life had been spent in the wilds of Northumbria, somewhere further up the coast, near the old gentle town of Morwick. A part of Kathy's heart was still lodged in that place, and even in her happiest moments there was a tug of sadness in her chest. She could never forget what she had left behind in that home on the wild coast. Even while she sat at the bar of the Robin Hood, looking splendid and unvanquishable in one of her signature low-cut velvet gowns, there was always a secret smile, a secret sadness, to Kathy Sturrock. Only her very closest friends had any inkling about that. Friends like Sophia Francino, who had been Kathy's chief barmaid and best pal for quite a number of years by 1932, when this story begins. In the spring of that year, Kathy's past was starting to open up again. Things were about to change. At first she assumed it would be all for the better, but it almost turned out to be her undoing. Holding court at the bar of the Robin Hood, Kathy looked like she was the crowned and anointed queen of the 16 streets, and she was going to rule happily forever. However, 1932 was the year that things got so bad she almost left South Shields and never came back. Sophia Francino was there with her every step of the way. The Italian woman, slightly younger than Kathy's 30 years, had her own problems and dramas that year. The best thing about it all was that the two women had each other to confide in and rely upon. Without that help, they would surely both have been lost. I shall stop there. It's all about Kathy's long-lost daughter coming back from Northumberland and turning up in the pub and being an absolute snobby horror and making her mother's life a misery. And because Kathy is so guilty about having lost her daughter as a toddler, she gives in to her and lets her run wild. And Junie, the pretty and capricious daughter, causes chaos on Frederick Street for the rest of this book, and pals up with plump, plain Minnie, who's also a barmaid and works in her mother's fish and chip shop. And we get a whole section in the middle where Kathy and Sophia escape to Naples in the south of Italy for a few weeks. So there's a whole Italian interlude going on in the back streets of Naples. I loved writing these books. I can't tell you. They were really hard work. It's about fitting into a whole different genre, but with my own voice. It's like, for me, and hopefully for my readers, for Elsie's readers, like stepping directly into the past. There they are. The Runaway Girl and The Forgotten Daughter. And they're both available now. Okay, I'm going to go. I hope you're all well, and I will talk to you again quite soon. I'll be back to talking about what I'm reading. There's something I've been reading this week that I'm really enjoying, and I can't wait to tell you about. Okay, but see you again soon.